The scorching sun hung low in the expansive sky as Dr. Elena Martinez wiped the sweat from her brow, her gaze fixed intently on the rugged horizon of New Mexico's desert landscape. The parched earth beneath her boots cracked with each determined step, and the distant mountains shimmered like mirages in the heat. The air was thick with the scent of sagebrush and the whispers of ancient tales long forgotten. Ever since she had stumbled upon cryptic references to a mysterious megalith, whispered in hushed tones among the elders of a secluded pueblo, Elena knew this could be the key to proving her controversial theory. A theory that suggested a lost civilization had migrated through these lands long before any known culture. The academic community had scoffed at her ideas, but here, in this timeless desert, she felt closer than ever to vindication. The wind stirred, carrying a faint murmur that seemed to beckon her deeper into the arid expanse, as if the land itself was urging her onward. Beside her, Professor Harold Green adjusted his weathered fedora, squinting at the tattered map that had led them this far. His furrowed brow betrayed a mix of skepticism and concern. Behind them, the rest of the team labored to unload equipment from the dust-coated jeeps. Marcus, the seasoned archaeologist whose cynicism was as sharp as his wit, muttered about chasing ghosts under his breath. Lydia, the introverted linguist, meticulously catalogued artifacts but struggled to voice her own thoughts within the group. Samir, the geologist with a penchant for local folklore, seemed more interested in spinning tales than analyzing rocks. Each had their reasons for being here: funding, reputation, escape, but none felt the urgency that coursed through Elena. As the youngest and only woman on the team, she sensed their subtle doubts. They saw her determination as recklessness, her theories as the folly of youth. But beneath her calm exterior burned a fierce resolve to unearth the truth buried beneath centuries of sand and skepticism. As dusk draped the desert in hues of crimson and violet, the team set up camp under the vast canopy of stars. The fire crackled softly, sending embers swirling into the darkening sky and casting dancing shadows across their faces. The silence was broken by Samir's voice weaving tales he'd gathered from local tribes. "They say this land was once home to the Anuki," he began, his tone hushed and eyes gleaming. "A people who could walk between worlds. They built a stone, a megalith, to anchor their souls, to commune with spirits beyond our realm." Elena leaned in, a chill creeping up her spine despite the lingering heat. The flames reflected in her eyes, as if igniting an inner fire. Marcus scoffed lightly. "Superstitions won't find us artifacts," he retorted. But Elena wasn't listening. Her mind raced with possibilities. As the others retired for the night, she remained, gazing into the abyss of the desert. A faint, ethereal glow on the horizon caught her eye, a luminescence that defied explanation. An inexplicable compulsion stirred within her, an urge she couldn't resist. Guided by the ghostly light, Elena ventured away from camp, the vast silence amplifying the crunch of sand beneath her boots. The terrain grew treacherous, dotted with jagged rocks and twisted cacti that seemed to grasp at her like bony fingers. The glow intensified, revealing a secluded valley where the air felt thick and charged. There it stood, the megalith, towering and monolithic, as if it had risen from the very depths of the earth. Its surface was etched with symbols and pictographs unlike any she had seen, lines and spirals that seemed to shift and writhe when not directly observed. Awe mingled with dread as she approached, her fingertips tingling as they hovered over the cold stone. Suddenly, a searing pain shot through her temples, and she gasped, collapsing to her knees. Visions flooded her mind, shadowy figures performing rituals beneath a blood-red moon, chants in a haunting language resonating deep within her bones. The sky swirled above, and the ground pulsed beneath her, as if the very fabric of reality was unraveling. The onslaught ceased as abruptly as it began, leaving her trembling in the oppressive silence. Stumbling back to camp under the indifferent gaze of the stars, Elena struggled to compose herself. Bursting into the circle of tents, she startled the others awake. "I found it, the megalith. And something happened," she stammered, her voice edged with both exhilaration and fear. Her disheveled appearance and wild eyes did little to bolster her credibility. Marcus rubbed his eyes, irritation evident. "Are you sure you didn't dream it?" he grumbled. Professor Green placed a steadying hand on her shoulder. "Perhaps the heat is affecting you. You should rest," he suggested gently. Frustration welled up inside her. "I'm not imagining it. The symbols, they were alive." Lydia's gaze softened. "Describe them to me," she urged. Elena grabbed a notebook and sketched the patterns from memory, each stroke steadier than the last. Lydia's eyes widened. "These resemble proto-writing from several ancient cultures, but that's impossible." Before they could delve deeper, a sudden gust swept through the camp, extinguishing the fire and plunging them into darkness. The temperature plummeted, and the air filled with an eerie humming. Equipment malfunctioned. Compasses spun wildly. Electronic devices flickered and died. Whispers echoed around them, indistinct yet filled with urgency. Panic set in as the desert seemed to close in, unseen forces pressing upon them. Elena's headaches intensified, each wave bringing sharper, more vivid visions. She saw through the eyes of the Anuki, witnessing their desperation to escape a cataclysm they believed was imminent. They had turned to forbidden rites, attempting to pierce the veil between worlds. Realization dawned upon her. The megalith was not just a monument but a conduit, and her awakening of it had breached a barrier. "We unleashed something," she whispered, fear etching her features. The ground trembled, and the megalith erupted with light, casting the desert in unnatural hues. Ethereal figures materialized, their forms translucent yet solid, eyes void yet penetrating. One stepped forward, reaching out with a skeletal hand. A cacophony of voices invaded her mind. "You have opened the path. Join us. Become the vessel." Terror coursed through her veins as she resisted the pull. "Run!" she screamed, but her voice felt muted, swallowed by the oppressive atmosphere. One by one, her colleagues were enveloped by the apparitions, their screams silenced abruptly. Elena felt a force grip her, lifting her off the ground as the world around her dissolved into blinding light. Then, as quickly as it began, stillness returned. The first light of dawn bathed the landscape in a soft glow. Elena found herself alone in the clearing where the camp had been, now nothing more than a smattering of disturbed sand. Disoriented, she stumbled to where the megalith had stood, but found only an empty space. No trace of her team or the colossal stone remained. The weight of solitude pressed upon her, but amidst the despair, a strange serenity took hold. The whispers that once haunted her were silent, replaced by an innate understanding. The visions had ceased, but their knowledge lingered. She had become the living vessel for the Anuki's legacy, their stories etched into her very being. The realization was both a burden and a gift. As she made her way back through the unforgiving desert, guided by instincts not entirely her own, Elena contemplated the cost of her ambition. She had sought to uncover the past, but instead, the past had consumed all that she held dear. Weeks later, seated before a panel of incredulous academics, Elena recounted her tale. Eyes rolled and head shook as she spoke of megaliths, apparitions, and vanished colleagues. Without evidence, her words were dismissed as the ramblings of a woman broken by the desert. Stripped of her credentials and reputation, she withdrew from public life. Yet, late at night, when the world was quiet, she could still hear the echoes of the Anuki. The boundaries between her memories and theirs blurred. She understood now that some histories are not meant to be unearthed, some stories not meant to be told. The megalith had demanded a sacrifice, and it had been paid. Bound by fate or folly, Elena accepted her role as the guardian of secrets better left buried, her dreams forever haunted by the spectral faces of those she had lost, and the ancient souls that now dwelled within her own.